It's a port of call, home away from home for diplomats, hustlers, entrepreneurs, and wanderers, humans and aliens wrapped in 2,500,000 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. John Sheridan, Babylon 5. The Daily Grind, Chapter 162. It was 2 p.m. in a rented skyscraper office floor. Around a smooth oval of a table, a group gathered to discuss important matters of strategy and operations. The general outline of the conversations was already known, but this was the first time since James had come back that they had made the time to all be in the same room together. It wasn't even everyone who would normally be at meetings like this. JP was still off, presumably spying on the Guild of Alchemists, but more likely just avoiding awkward contact with James, and Texture of Barkdust was participating in search and rescue at Taunton. Their seats were still filled, though, Nate taking over as representative of the intelligence branch of the Order, and Watcher under Stone standing in for the usual Camerconda liaison, full name chosen at last. Karen was also there, and as far as James could prove, had been there for the last 4 hours, carefully tapping her stack of printed notes on the table and waiting. Momo was present, but she'd been lurking by the elevator so she could come in with James and not have to face Karen alone. Apparently, there was still an amount of enmity between the mother and the girl who nearly got her daughter killed. Harvey and Knife and Fangs were there for response, and Davis was filling in for research on the grounds that he was more interested in the long term than Reed was. The three of them were having a conversation about basketball when James entered, though it trailed off as he settled into his seat, which was kind of annoying. He could have used an extra point. Around Davis's shoulders, the organized, ethereal form of Planner waited patiently. And then, Sarah, as the proxy for the broader base of the Order's membership. She was sitting next to a man that James hadn't actually met before. Cocoa skin and a smooth, wide head, an appraising look on his face that flashed through concern as James entered, still damaged from his time on vacation and showing it plainly on his face. Maybe in his late 30s, he had a sharp jacket hung over the back of his chair and a professional shirt on that James figured looked better on the other man than it ever would on himself. It was a bit incorrect to say that everyone represented their respective parts of the organization. They weren't official ranking members or anything. They were just the people with the knowledge and skills to have this conversation right now and to get the ball rolling on things. Or at least, that was what James liked to tell himself, so he didn't feel like he was actually responsible for large-scale decision-making. "You're early," Sarah said, thumping a loose fist onto the tabletop. "I thought for sure you'd be running in late, having only remembered this was happening at the last second and rushing to get here, possibly with toast in your mouth." "Do you think my life is an anime?" James gave her a concerned smile. "Wait, don't answer that. Also, hi, I'm James. Nice to meet you." He leaned over and offered a handshake to the man sitting next to Sarah. "Jake Redding." The man's voice was warm and firm, but all business, and the handshake matched. "Legal counsel and civilian oversight, which I guess is something secret societies need now." "You're taking this pretty well," James said, nodding at him. "Well, it's that or run screaming, and the elevator ride back down would be awkwardly long." James grinned, and was about to keep the banter going when Karen cleared her throat. "Mr. Redding is a potential permanent hire for us, and has been cleared for everything but the most threatening knowledge." She was specifically referring to the Skulljacks when she said that. "He'll be working with us on the Taunton situation, but I've invited him to this meeting to give him time to acclimate." "What happened to the other lawyer?" James asked, shooting a look at Karen. She cocked her eyebrows at him. "The other lawyer?" James gave a wide-eyed, questioning gaze. "The lawyer that came up here shortly before I did? The one who was doing legal consultation for us. This is a different lawyer. Do you have a thing that transforms people into other lawyers?" He paused, his eyes shifting downward as he idly ran his thumb across his fingertips. "Actually, do you have a thing that turns people into other people in general? I wouldn't mind." "No, and we also hired a small legal staff to work on contacting next of kin, managing estate transition, and other affairs. Mr. Redding is here to specifically assist us, which means knowing slightly more than just the fact that our one-floor office building has an elevator in it." "Gotcha," James nodded. "So, do we want to start with Taunton?" he asked, looking around. Or do we have other problems? Several. Knife and Fang sounded far too cheerful about that. Nate cleared his throat. Yeah, we actually have a few things we need decisions on, but they should be quick, comparatively. He folded his arms on the table and leaned forward, and James realized for the first time that he wasn't seeing Nate in a chef's jacket and stained apron, but instead a garishly colored Hawaiian shirt. He blinked but shook it off as Nate started talking. First off, the issue with Harlan's wolf pack. God, I hate that name, Momo muttered, rolling her eyes from her seat next to James. Same, he agreed, and then out loud asked, This is the group that stormed the chemical plant, right? What do we know about them? Pretty much nothing but the name, Nate said, shaking his head. We have a rogue going over the immediate area looking for any sign of where they came from or operate out of, but nothing so far. The refinery workers don't remember anything about the whole day, and had a check against employee rosters shows that no one's missing, except for the woman who was working with the old gun. So they didn't kill anyone, but that does mean that they have a way to wipe memories. Super, James sighed. Aside from that, no idea what they were there for? None, though given the nature of the attack, it's likely they were there to access the dungeon, Nate replied with a small shake of his head. We're prepping to test it ourselves, but they held the building for a while, so we'll need to be careful about any traps or surveillance left behind. Great. Okay. So, what's the decision to be made there? James asked. It seems like the smartest thing to do is stop prepping to go in, right? We don't need another dungeon, and the risk of coming up against people like us but with bigger guns and less ethics is one that we don't really want to run right now. Continue watching, Watcher Understone added. See if it is a hunting ground for them. Yeah, what she said, James nodded. It's possible they've been there before. They may go back again. Keep someone in the area, we might get lucky. Karen raised an eyebrow. You don't want more magic? She asked, cynically. I don't believe it. James snorted. I've got enough magic, and several ways to get more. Having another resource like that would be valuable to us, but it isn't worth risking lives over. We are explorers first, and rescue squad second, and conquerors never. We aren't conquerors. Could be excellent conquerors, Knife and Fangs added. There was a pause around the table as everyone looked at the Camerconda. Sarah leaned forward a bit, tilting her head and raising her eyebrows expectantly, until Knife and Fangs finally, reluctantly added, And that would be bad. Okay, that aside, James smothered a laugh. Does anyone have any other thoughts on that approach? Observe, gather intel if possible, but don't get into a proxy war over a dungeon entrance? I'm fine with it, but I think at some point we're going to find out these guys are the kinds of people you're probably going to want to get into a fight with, Nate answered. Sarah propped her elbow on the table and stuck her chin in the palm of her hand, asking, Why do you think that? Because he's probably met James before, Harvey suggested, speaking up for the first time. He'd been a bit distracted, reading a constantly updating list of in-progress operations on his phone. Just a bad feeling, Nate admitted, drawing another quiet pause before they moved on. All right, what's next? James asked. JP's girlfriend is planning to sell us out, Sarah offered. James paused, made eye contact with his best friend, who was sporting a toothy grin, and then turned to Karen. All right, what's next? He asked her. Well, we could discuss hiring practices. We could get Davis and Planner to give us an update on the dungeon tech construction methods research has been working on. We could talk about the mountain. Harvey has a general outline he wants to run by you that he has been waiting very patiently on. Or perhaps you would be interested in knowing that JP's girlfriend is planning to sell us out? God damn it, James grumbled. I was afraid you'd say that. May I ask a question? Redding raised a hand tentatively. Shoot, James nodded at him. So I'm up to speed on the fact that magic is real and we are not alone in the universe. He waved a hand, palm up, toward one of the two Camercondas at the table. But what I don't understand is why you're worried about being revealed. Who do you think anyone could go to about you that it would be a real problem? JP's girlfriend is Agent Tiffany Decay and she works for the FBI, Nate said flatly. She also isn't his girlfriend. They just think they're being funny. Ah, Jake said, lowering his hand. No further questions at this time. Momo crossed her arms. I still don't get why we ever agreed to let them in the first place, she said. It was fine when it was just Nate and he was pretending he wasn't a spy, but now it's all controlling and stuff. Redding tried to move his chair slightly, discreetly shifting away from Nate's spot at the table. I'm not with them anymore, the larger man dryly commented. The reason at the time was that the feds thought we would be a useful asset for responding to terrorist attacks because we had just done the battle at the high school, Karen answered. Should name these battles, Knife and Fang suggested. I have ideas, he offered, just in case. We'll talk later, Sarah smiled, and the Camerconda nodded back at her. James waved their conversation down. Point is, it seemed like it might be a useful point of contact. And in a lot of ways it has been, because they know about us and we've been able to take jobs from the FBI at our discretion, which gives us more exposure to the weird stuff and also lets us... Nate, how would you phrase our billing plan? Extortionate, Nate answered. Cool, that, James said. That, but to the government. He sighed. But now they've assigned us a liaison that's, a little more conservative than I'm comfortable with. Is that how I should phrase this? Karen met his gaze again, a hint of annoyance in her eyes. She believes us to be incompatible with what she considers American values. She doesn't have a solid internal definition for that term and has recommended to her bosses that our operations be disrupted and our membership pressured into leaving. She is, in fact, literally spying on us. She did help us find a magical lighthouse, to be fair, Sarah pointed out. Randall never did that. Yeah, but Randall died before he got to the part where he learned I'm an anarchist, James reminded her. Jake raised his hand again, the man looking well out of his depth now. Sorry, died? Yes, James said. Not because of us, though. You know what? There's a lot of history on that one. We'll talk after. No problem. Redding lowered his hand again, hiding obvious concern. James sighed, trying not to seem frustrated with his line of conversation. Look, I don't know what to do about this. Do we just tell the FBI we're disbanding, kick Decay out, and then do nothing? It's not like they can find the building. We do operations outside of this building, Harvey reminded him. If they really want to, they can hurt us. Okay, suggestions? Go public with response, Harvey instantly spoke up. Make it something they can't fight without being the bad guys, which they will anyway, but then, well, you can do your thing. Momo threw herself onto the table. No, she protested. James's thing involves a lot of collateral damage. We will all end up in jail or shot. Or worse, for us, Knife and Fangs added. Yes, exactly. No, we should settle this quietly. Momo nodded. Look, I can basically rip secrets out of the air. Elle can do something similar. Let us teleport into Decay's boss's house and just blackmail the shit out of him. It'll be so much cleaner, and it's something we can do until we get a better solution. Nate gave the girl an appraising look, realizing he may not have appreciated her ruthless streak enough. Redding, meanwhile, raised his hand once more. Should I leave the room if we're discussing illegal activities? Technically, in a lot of states, it's mostly legal to teleport into someone's bedroom and magically determine if they're having an affair, as long as you don't touch anything, James said with a shrug. Everyone's heads slowly pivoted to look at him. What? I looked it up. It's the breaking part of breaking and entering that's an issue, and if you don't touch anything, it's trespassing at most, which is only a misdemeanor. Wiretapping and surveillance laws only apply to specific technologies or actions, and I promise you they do not cover magic. We are not having this conversation, Karen told him, turning to Momo. How do you know you'll be able to blackmail anyone effectively? She asked. They work for the FBI, Momo replied. As hilarious and probably accurate as that response is, Karen's right, Nate interjected. We'll need a little more to go on than just that, but I'll look into it. Talk to JP, get you a real, hopefully legal plan within a week. What is the actual end goal? He asked, looking around at the table. Cut contact, Sarah said. No more doing jobs for them. No more taking their money. Harvey nodded in agreement. Non-interference would be preferable, but we're already starting to work with rights groups that they actively interfere with, or at least want to. Like them. He pointed a scarred finger over at the new guy. Though we're probably going to be drawing more attention as time goes on, and they have no actual reason to keep their promises. It's historically been an issue. So I don't know what to add, or where I was going with this. Okay, cut contact, make ourselves a non-issue. I'll get on it, Nate stated, like it would just be that easy. Good enough for me, James said. Who's next, Davis? The older man jolted upright. Yes, we have some good news and some bad news. Did you hit my car with a spatial blender again? James asked. No. What? The new guy's eyebrows were really getting to work out today. Sarah patted him on the shoulder. I'll fill you in later. Carry on, James waved a hand. Davis cleared his throat, reading something out of the corner of his eye that Planner showed to him. Yes, okay, so, good news. We've got 3 fairly basic orange totem patterns down solid. We can do Penrose hallways, folded doors, and best of all, a standard bigger on the inside space. Folded doors are the thing where we can make the same door lead to different iterations of the room past it, depending on certain conditions. In case anyone didn't read the, frankly, irresponsibly long write-up on this. Also, after a few false starts, we've gotten positioning and connections down to the point that we can link them together to rapidly assemble large-scale structures, if we've got the right patterns to work with. This is the happiest day of my year. James closed his eyes and let out a long, content breath. Okay. I assume there's bad news, because you said so? Yes, plumbing and wiring are proving to be major challenges. Also, each totem has a finite amount of matter. As in, it can't go beyond a certain amount at once? Harvey asked. Because that's not an issue. Delvers bring back new orbs every week. Davis sucked in a nervous breath. As in, there's a finite amount it can copy, period. When we shut down an orb, it drags most of it back in, but removed samples stay real and deduct from the limit, and they won't go back later. Basically, we can't use them as factories, though we can get, say, a few thousand chairs out of one and then just discard it if we wanted to. I'm sorry, chairs? Redding and Sarah both spoke at the same time, the young woman giving him a friendly, grinning offer of a high five that went unnoticed for long enough that she awkwardly high-fived herself and then lowered her own hand. Furniture in general, Davis continued, not noticing the byplay. Chairs, lamps, whatever. Only works with common used materials, though. So far, we can't copy a silver chair. Davis shrugged. Anyway, we expect that we'll be able to begin layering the foundation for the trial arcology by the end of the year, though Bill has asked that I ask you to hire more people for the initial construction so it can be as polished as possible, and... Done. James thunked a flat palm onto the table. Anything else you need? More money? More magic? Government officials strategically removed? I'll fucking do it. Please stop saying things like that in front of me. Jake pinched the bridge of his nose. Also, please stop promising money in front of me, Karen added. We don't have that many resources, no matter how much you wish we did. James threw his arms up. I'll figure it out somehow, he declared. We've got 5 dungeons open to us now, an endless font of value. We'll figure it out. Speaking of, Karen directed a rather cold look toward Momo. If that's an affirmative decision on continuing the arcology work, I think we can move on to the Australian mountain and the near death of my daughter. Momo withered under the older woman's icy gaze. I said I was sorry, she exclaimed in a voice that was a lot meeker than her normal belligerent tone. Oh, yeah, that makes it all better, James rolled his eyes. To be clear, he was on Momo's side here. Karen was being both needlessly hostile and dramatically overprotective of her daughter. Elizabeth had gone with Momo's team to Australia because she had wanted to, both to interact with the few friends she'd started to develop, and also just to have her own small adventure. The fact that she had ended up on a much more dangerous adventure had not been Momo's fault, and was, in fact, largely a product of Liz's own strange immunity to antimimetics. They could have been safer, could have been better prepared, but they hadn't expected the dungeon to actively strike out. And in the end, they had been prepared enough to get everyone out without anyone dying. Which was often good enough in this business. Apologies are important, Watcher under Stone agreed. How goes recovery? Momo looked up from the surface of the table she had become fascinated with. Chavoy is going to be all right. She's only been here a month or two. She's already racking up as many concussions as James. Liz and Morgan both got out scraped up, but no serious injuries. Color of Dawn, well, you'd know better than I would, actually. Do you guys ever regenerate lost flesh? Momo stretched out the last word as she asked the question. Watcher Understone looped her security camera head around in a Camerconda version of a shrug. Unlike Knife and Fangs, she wasn't wearing the mechanical arms many of the Camercondas had taken to, so she couldn't just shrug directly that way. It depends. Often. Starvation makes the process slow, often lethal, but we do not starve here. Rest, time, will help heal. May never be fully the same, though. Momo nodded. That was largely what she had learned in the past week anyway. Well, she said, its damage wasn't to a vital organ, so it'll probably be alright anyway. Momo sighed. I managed to get to them in time to help, so everyone's going to be alright in time. Okay, James said. I haven't actually had time to talk to you about this since getting back, except for when you were being a Chaos Goblin earlier. Can you fill me in on what the dungeon is? And I apologize if this is a repeat for anyone here. I'm curious, personally, Jake said. Dungeons are what you call holes in reality, right? As a video game reference? More or less, yeah, James answered him. This one is a mountain? Yeah, Momo nodded. And a fucking angry mountain at that. She took a deep breath. So the problem is, we went in just hoping to find the place, and we weren't really ready to actually go in, right? But the breach for this one moves, you guys. Chavoy said it was like ball lightning, making a little archway. Caught them totally off guard and dropped them into the dungeon without warning. We bailed out of there afterwards, so we haven't started tracking it yet, but it's possible that it can roam out to about 50 miles away from the base of the mountain, and also it's possible the mountain isn't real. Run that last part by me real quick? James blinked in abrupt confusion. The mountain. I think it's a mirage. There's no mountain there. Weird weather patterns, alarming missing persons rate, a whole lot of signs of a dungeon, but you can't just hide an entire fucking mountain like that. I've had Liz check out some satellite photos since she can see what's obviously a mountain, but the place where it supposedly is, yeah, people have been there. And I don't mean like they think they were there, but they were actually somewhere else. No, there are vacation photos online right now, geotagged to the middle of where the mountain supposedly is. I think it's a big mirage. Okay, maybe I'm too old to grasp this, but why? Davis asked the question no one else was willing to. Every other dungeon hides. Why is this one so not hiding? Maybe some kind of side effect of its breach being mobile? Sarah suggested. Karen hummed, momentarily setting aside her persistent cold anger at Momo. It's possible that this isn't intended at all. James, can dungeons become ill? Do not ask me that like I have any way of knowing the answer. James flatly shook his head. Maybe? Can I? The new guy cleared his throat, looking around for approval to contribute. James idly tapped the table. First thing you should know working for us, and may have already noticed, is that we welcome ideas and discussion. Please go ahead. Don't worry in the future. Just dive in. Just, don't interrupt. But yeah, go for it. Okay. So this mountain, it's in the middle of a part of Australia that's specifically a tourist town? Not exactly, Momo uttered as she put her thoughts together. It's a functioning city, but also, yeah, it's the kind of place that seems like it gets a lot of business from tourists. Campers, hikers, that sort of thing. Has a big art town vibe to it, too, in some places. Part of it's a kind of rundown. Right, right. Can these dungeons think? All at once, James, Sarah, Harvey, and Knife and Fangs echoed a single yes. Jake jolted a little at the varying levels of vehemence and venom in the different voices, and then leaned back in his chair with a nod. Okay, then it's a trap. How do you figure? Harvey asked, curious. So obvious. I mean, aside from the fact that we needed to have Planner in the room to even talk about it without forgetting about the whole thing. It's a bad trap, like putting a warning sign over a bear trap. James, though, tilted his head back to the ceiling and groaned. Oh, I get it, he said as he ran his good hand through his hair. It's the kind of trap for people who would be super curious about the mountain that isn't on any map. People who would love to check it out at least a little bit, and then the sporadic memory effect is going to make it so that no one realizes how long they've spent walking toward it. And you only have to get too close for a minute and in range. So you think this one's actively hunting? Momo asked. I mean, it was clearly going for injury or death right off the bat, so I buy that. What do we want to do about it, though? Or, more accurately, do we try to kill it? Sarah put forth. There was a quiet pause as everyone thought about that. They hadn't, after all, tried to kill or seal the office, or even the sewer. And both of those had proven to be very, very dangerous places. But this was something with a much wider geographical range that seemed to be actively luring in and killing more people than either of the other two did. We need to know more first, James decided. Also, on that note, give us a picture of the inside, or at least what you saw. Momo took a deep, steadying breath and started to explain. As soon as she'd been dropped into the dungeon, it had been a struggle to stay alive. The entrance, which appeared to be at least a little consistent, was a waist-deep bank of soft snow that almost instantly infiltrated every crack in Momo's outfit. Her outfit, which was neither armor nor designed for weather worse than a mildly chilly afternoon. The closest thing she had to cold weather gear was a status quo glove on her left hand. She walked everyone through the process of locating the trails of the others, moving away from the entrance. They had headed up the slope because, as Momo bitterly stated, there was no down the slope. Behind her at the entrance point was a sheer cliff, a howling wall of white blocking any longer visibility past that line, though she occasionally caught glimpses of distant snow caps and harsh peaks through the storm. There were a few trees in the area, which all had dozens of branches that were gnarled in 90-degree angles and completely bare of any greenery. Momo had avoided these, partially because the trails of the people she was after had too, but also because it was insanely suspicious. There were also a few rocky outcrops, one of which had a small area of snow cleared around one side where the group's path led. Momo told the assembled group that the reason would become obvious to her later, when she got caught out in a blast of frozen wind that had nearly taken her arm off with a spinning chunk of razor-sharp ice. The outcrops weren't that secure, but they made for great cover from spontaneous weather when you needed it. The trail continued, and by this point, Momo had been able to see a flickering yellow-orange light a quarter-mile up the slope. She'd had to pass through a copse of trees and had encountered signs of a fight there. Blood and splintered wood, and one tree that was missing half its branches. She tried to hurry, but had been trying to hurry the whole time, and the cold was, Momo reminded everyone, instantly painful and very difficult to move through. When she made it up to where the other three had camped, she had found them in a fight with a patch of snow that looked like it had just lifted itself off the ground, and made use of rocks and chunks of ice for eyes and teeth. Color of Dawn had been down for the count at that point, and the younger kids had been hiding behind Chavoy, who was trying to scare the thing away from their cave and their fire with a burning branch. The engineer was not doing okay when Momo first saw her, and bleeding from both arms as she tried to fend off the snow beast. Momo had resolved the problem by punching it in the stone eye with her status quo glove, shattering the rock like a grenade and killing the creature instantly. She had joined the others around the burning corpse of some kind of stick-bug-looking creature, applying what first aid she could and desperately hoping her telepad dried out enough to actually write on before they all died of exposure. Or the 3 or 4 other snow beasts that were slowly circling the camp. In a brief window when Momo had stepped away from the fire itself to challenge the snow creatures and hold them at bay for a moment, the other four had been offered the option to leave. They hadn't explained how at the time, but Momo urged them to take it. Later, she filled the conference room in. They had put together from the offered intrusive thought that it was a function of the dungeon. You just had to be at a fire or other camp when the timer ticked over, either a global timer or one that was personal to every individual. They weren't sure yet. They had just gotten lucky. Momo hadn't been close enough to the campfire, makeshift as it was, to be caught up in the same effect, but she'd sent them off, promised she'd be fine, and then got really, really lucky drying out the telepad and blipping out before the pack of snow beasts closed in. As a reward for her unorthodox survival, she had gotten a mental message similar to what the others had, though a little bit angrier. Cowardice. Deception. Ascension, 122 feet. Bestowal, +3 breath storage. The others had not gotten the deception editorializing from the dungeon, though the rest of the statement was all the same. None of them had gotten anything to actually use breath on, and Momo was quick to inform everyone that it wasn't just the ability to need less air for a while. It was as she was describing the texture of the feeling of having it that James made a realization. "That sounds like velocity," he said suddenly, interrupting for the first time since she had started her story. "Yeah, Momo, you're describing a mana pool." "So, what do I do with it?" Momo asked. "Because I don't know if I want to go back to Death Mountain just to find out." "I mean, nothing. Though, that said, we should get Anesh in there and see if it works for him." James's brain was already whirring with possibilities. "Maybe that'll be our next vacation, assuming I can get some high-quality cold weather gear, and a lot of thermite." "You know that we super can get a lot of thermite," Sarah rolled her eyes at him. "I've met Anesh," Jake muttered to her, not wanting to interrupt. "Why him?" "Anesh doesn't have to breathe," Sarah whispered back. Redding nodded. "Of course," he said, as if that was normal. "So, vampire, or—" "What?" Sarah blinked. "Oh, no, just doesn't have to breathe, but like normally." Davis and Harvey sighed in unison, Nate snorting at the exchange, adding, "You'll get used to this eventually, and then we'll need to hire a new consultant for real-world sanity checks." "Ah, no job security around here?" Redding asked. James shrugged. "I mean, by that point, you'll probably be indispensable to at least one project. That's just kind of how it goes. Though, speaking of, Harvey had some stuff about hiring if we're ready to move on." Wait. What are we doing about the mountain?" Karen stopped him. "Stay focused here." "I mean, we fence it off, right?" James leaned back and thought for a second. "Is that practical? We obviously want to explore it more, or at least I do. But we need to keep it from eating people. How much fence do you think we could drop down into the Australian wilderness without being noticed?" 20 feet, Nate said instantly. "Maybe. I think you're seriously underestimating how much you won't get away with this. Small stuff is hard to spot on flyovers or from satellite, but as soon as you draw a circular line around an invisible mountain, you are painting a bullseye on it, and people will see." "There was that weird grim monolith that showed up in the Utah desert that no one found for years. Maybe it would be like that. Also, wouldn't the presence of the mountain make it harder to do anything about?" Davis pointed out. Knife and Fangs hummed, a low, vibrating tone from his natural voice. "Did we investigate the grim monolith?" "Nah, the grim monolith was a human thing." Harvey gave a small frown. "We assume. It was too recognizable as weird art to be a weird dungeon thing, I think." "Can we please stop saying grim monolith?" James asked, and was ignored. Nate rapped his knuckles on the table. "Look, the point is, miles of fence is too obvious. You're not going to keep people out. You're going to get government officials and wildlife preservationists showing up and asking you what the fuck you were doing, and then they'll get eaten by the mountain. And I hate that you have turned me into someone who says things like that." "How about keeping someone in the area as a lookout, warning people away?" Harvey suggested. "We've got more and more trained drone scouts available these days." Requested hours exceed available hours, Planner softly muttered into the air. Harvey gave the Infomorph's manifestation a betrayed look before turning back to James. Well, we have drone scouts who can train more drone scouts to be available. Alright, that seems like it could be a good plan going forward, until we can explore more, James said tentatively. Any objections? Yes, Karen stated bluntly. Any objections that aren't based on parental protective anger? No, Karen corrected, but I am still angry. This one broke all the rules we are aware of, and it will continue to actively hunt people. Why shouldn't we try to starve it out? The demand was harsh, but given that her daughter had nearly died in the dungeon, it wasn't completely unfair. We just might, eventually, James told her. But we do need to explore it first, to verify. And also, if it broke all the rules we know about, then we didn't know all the rules. And this could be an opportunity to learn at least some of them. Which is the only way that we will last for long if stuff like this is more common than we think. He met her eyes, and after a moment Karen gave him a single nod, before making a mark on the page she had in front of her. And just like that, the ball got rolling on rendering the dungeon safe. Well, safer. For people that didn't go into it on purpose, at least. James shook his head slightly, shaking off the temptation to go off on a mental tangent. Okay, Harvey, hiring plan. Yeah. The other man passed James a thick blue folder, which James took and started flipping through, seeing resumes, notes, personal profiles. So, currently we're operating with two bottlenecks to response. One is the number of teams we can safely deploy, and one is the number of telepads available. Is that a serious problem already? James raised an eyebrow. No, but it will be within a couple of years, Harvey told him. And suddenly James realized just how far into the long term the de facto leader of response was thinking ahead. The gray in his hair was starting to make sense. So to alleviate problems early, we started identifying candidates that would make both good mundane response team members and potential delvers to increase our access to more telepads, Harvey stated. These are people, some of whom have previously applied, some of whom we've scouted in a few ways. Social media trawling, personal recommendations, dungeon tech info gathering. A lot of them aren't going to be perfect fits for us, but that's never been a problem previously. I wasn't a perfect fit. Neither were half our members. We have an established culture now that we can effectively absorb a large influx of new people without losing our identity, and we should take advantage of that. This is a lot of people, James muttered, flipping through the various profiles. How many is a lot? Sarah asked. I'd like to start with 20, Harvey replied, drawing apprehensive breaths from a few others at the table. Moving up to 80 before the year is over. James suddenly felt a nervous tug in his chest. Okay, I see where you're coming from with this, but 80 people? I already feel bad that I don't know everyone in the building anymore. Can we even pay 80 people? Watcher Understone hissed out loud and drew James's attention before she started speaking. You do not know all of my species, but you helped us, regardless. Want to be helping all of your species. Do you expect to know them all? And don't give an answer that hinges on immortality, Sarah preemptively chastised him with a waving finger. James's frown softened a little. That is fair. This just seems like a big step. Can we even afford this? He alternated, looking between Karen and Planner. No, Karen said simply. Not immediately. We are operating at a deficit, and that's only gotten worse this month with the influx of refugees to take care of. Now, a lot of those people are going to be on the path to recovery within the next month, so that cost will be going down, but we still don't have access to enough resources to have the financial power to hire that many people. But, Planner added, an angular limb shifting around Davis's shoulder to interject, ourselves can account for increased operations. A number of ideas float toward the surface, projects near ready states. Money is acquirable, especially when relevant space operations are expanded. There are materials to make use of, if we make use of them. Karen nodded. Yes, exactly. precious metals alone are enough to balance our books temporarily. If we had perhaps one or two more experienced teams exploring Officium Mundi, that could be enough. But there's also opportunities to begin applying powers for civil engineering, as Davis has mentioned, which can be a very lucrative field with the proper access to contacts. Do we have that access? James asked. Yes, I've been securing it, since it has been made clear to me that we can do road work at an inhumanly rapid rate. That's such an ominous goddamn sentence. James shook his head. And I know what you're talking about. Okay, 20 people to start. You think that'll be okay? Karen nodded. Harvey shrugged, as if to indicate that it would be an okay start. James sighed. Part of me wants to be the one contacting potential hires, but that might just be me panicking and hoping to hold on to control of something that I really don't need to. He shook his head. All right, do it. To be fair, I could use the help, Harvey told him. I'm busy, a lot. I was going to get Knife and Anne to do most of the work since they're both off rotation for a week or so. Unneeded, Knife and Fangs grumbled. Downtime is critical to long-term mental health, Harvey sniped back without missing a beat. He turned back to James. So, yeah, they'd probably like the help. James chuckled. All right, we'll start that process after the weekend. He looked down at the notes Karen had given him at the start of the meeting. Next small thing is the authorities. Okay, anyone have a problem with these? I have another question. Jake propped his elbow up on the table. Which authorities this time? Police? James winced apologetically. Oh, sorry, this gets unclear sometimes. When words are capitalized like that, it's usually a secondary use of the term in reference to a dungeon thing. Authorities are... Okay, hold up. How the hell do you keep speaking the capital letters? That's not... I have never heard anyone do that. Okay, rude. James recovered from being interrupted. It's a trick. Anyone can learn it. The authorities are a form of infomorph like planner here, except instead of being based on a compulsive assignment, they're based on structured organizational authority. As far as we know, Nikhil recently bonded to one, and they're getting along fine. I have a mild problem with them, Momo chimed in. Because aren't we supposed to be an organization that doesn't have the kind of power structures an authority would want to feed on? This seems like using them too much would warp how we act. James nodded at her in acknowledgement. I actually had a conversation early... Wait, weren't you there for the conversation earlier? Whatever. The point is, we don't know a lot, but we do know we can fight back if they try to take over. Though I don't think they actually could, and I, for one, am interested in how they'd grow when planted in an organization like ours, where power is more fluid and responsibility is more personal. That kind of covers my main concern, too, Davis said with a shrug. We've been keeping an eye on their hive in a safe containment spot. It looks like there's 6 or 7 new authority, let's call them larvae, that might be ready to be taken up. Members of my people, curious, wanting more active roles. Watcher Understone tilted her head toward Davis. Perhaps a chance, here? It should work, yeah, Davis agreed quickly. There's no real inherent conflict, since they don't come from a dungeon that might subvert Camercondas. I can make sure a couple of your people are on the list for volunteers. Around him, Planner shifted as the infomorph adjusted itself into an ethereal copy of that mentioned list. Karen made a displeased noise and frowned down at her notes. I'm not sure it's a good idea to rig that list to satisfy the desire to be a multi-species order, she said. We should do real testing to see where the authorities work best. The words brought an unexpected wince out of James. He forgot, sometimes, that while Karen had adapted to them more than expected, she still maybe held some unexamined biases that came out of nowhere on occasion. Think of it like reparations, he told her, and instantly regretted the word choice, as Karen looked like she was about to argue that, too. James spoke quickly to explain himself. We didn't artificially create a species of puppet soldiers destined to die in battle. We aren't the ones who should be fixing the problem. But we're here now, and we can do something, and the more Camercondas are put in positions to interact with the world and secure their own agency going forward, the healthier a society we can build. She didn't look exactly convinced, but Karen was nothing if not aware of the fact that when James used that tone of voice, he had a personal conviction that she probably wasn't going to change. Their new legal counsel chimed in as well. "This isn't actually the same categorical thing as reparations, just so you know," he told James. "But you're not wrong on the fundamentals. Correcting a power imbalance isn't easy, but the sooner it's done, historically speaking, the smoother it goes." "Also, it's the right thing to do?" Momo still didn't actually look in Karen's direction, but she did speak up. "Also, I actually like most of the Camercondas," Sarah added. "I'd trust them with that power." "You like everyone," James reminded her, to which she just stuck her tongue out at him. The epitome of professional behavior. "All right, so authorities, go for it. Make sure there's at least some form of trust verification first, and tell Reed not to do anything stupid with it, but go ahead. Actually, do that this weekend, and let's move hiring to next week. Stabilize any problems that come out of this before we drop more people into the chaos." He sighed as a few people made notes and noises of acknowledgement. "All right, so, one last thing. Who wants to go first?" The one last thing was that there was, perhaps, a small amount of fallout from the events in Taunton, Tennessee. Momo started them off. "Okay, one big thing that's been worrying is if this is going to get us, shut down or anything. Like if any random government might take offense to the whole thing." The young woman pursed her lips and ducked her head as a few people around the table gave her incredulous looks at the way she made it sound a lot less horrifying than it actually was. "Right. Well, I've been keeping tabs on things. Nameless is watching news feeds for anything. I'm checking in with Planner and Pathfinder fairly often. It looks like the geographic memeplex around the dungeon was still operational in the claimed areas when you killed the guy." She shot a nod toward James. "The dungeon pulled back, but from what I can tell of how things like maps and Wikipedia have been edited over the last couple of days, the general consensus is that the city is just way smaller than it's always written down as." Momo shrugged. "We're in the clear, as far as anyone noticing. I think even Decay didn't actually know anything happened beyond James and Anesh going on vacation. Large-scale forgetfulness, basically." "Oof." James shook his head. "That's going to make it hard for the survivors to rebuild, assuming they want to." "Most of them do not," Karen spoke in an informative tone, rattling off statistics like an automatic weapon. "We brought back 351 survivors, not counting the people who are here in the lair. Of those, roughly half owned property in Taunton, and most of the rest are underage. Recovery has already begun contacting family where possible, transporting the children affected when it makes sense to do so. We may need to either interface with state social services for at least 20 of the children who have no known family, or else make order-esque arrangements." James snorted a laugh at the sentence, and he noticed he wasn't the only one. Karen just rolled on through, perhaps not having meant for it to be funny. "Of the adults that owned property in the city, many of them are struggling against the anti-mimetic effect, and are treating this as a singular traumatic event that lost them their homes, and sometimes families. We have made counseling and therapy available, but despite the violent nature of the event, it would appear the memory loss is actively helping many of them move on quickly. As before, recovery is assisting in finding family and providing insurance payouts where needed." "How's the money situation?" James asked. "We can afford that?" "It is cutting into our savings, but it will not bankrupt us," Karen said honestly. "I have secured us very affordable accommodations at a number of hotels, but I have also learned that you cannot get a bulk discount on therapists." She paused, and it took James almost a minute to realize that she had made a joke, intentionally this time. Undeterred by the lack of laughs, Karen continued on. "The ones who want to go back to the city are being pressured against it by those who consider the place lost. And, in my opinion, as well as that of our resident mental health experts, we should simply tell them that their homes are gone. Recover mementos and personal effects for them where possible, provide them funds to move on, and do not let them go back. Homes made unsafe, Knife and Fangs commented. Practical measure to keep them away. Not a lie. Exactly, thank you. Karen tipped her head toward the Camerconda. Fortunately, the fact that they're treating this as a single traumatic event means that we have seen a far, far lower rate of suicide than we did among... The words caught in her throat, and she looked away for a second before turning back and continuing, professional as she could be. Among survivors of long-term imprisonment from Officium Mundi. Sarah, you've been talking to Lua lately, right? Momo asked, awkwardly trying to slightly redirect the topic. Sarah gave an energetic nod. Yeah, though she's still at the school mostly. Connie is the one who's been our weird things mental health expert for this, and Karen's right. Sending people back is just going to lead to those people living somewhere they subconsciously associate with a lot of death. Knife and Fangs chimed in again, adding, and very real threat of present death. Sorry, what? James blinked. Nate looked up from the laptop he was placing a kitchen shipment order on while everyone else talked. Because of the bone things, he said simply. Anesh said you called them road warriors. I'm okay with that. Good movie. Second best in the series. We will talk about Mad Max later, James said, making a quick promise. First, though, those things are still there? I thought we killed them all. We killed all the ones around where the mechanic was, Nate corrected. But he made more, and they were actively making more out of the bodies of the civilians he killed. By the way, Karen, whoever in recovery is managing burial services, put them in touch with me or Harvey so we can streamline escorts. He jerked a thumb toward the man sitting next to him and then nodded. Wait. James whipped his arms up in a gesture of denial. You are telling me they are self-replicating? That is an end of the world situation. That is more serious than everything else we have been talking about. Did no one tell you this? Momo asked. It's bad, but it's mostly okay. They can only use bones that were from people killed on dungeon territory. It was in the mechanic's notes. The problem is just that they're all active now and roaming around. Technically, they're dungeon life, kind of, but even the ones that got near the entrance to the road don't leave. I don't think it wants them. She shrugged. It's kind of fuzzy. Either way, it's a big problem for us. That it is. As they aren't leaving the city, we're taking a break from operations to let our combat teams recover. Before we start... Harvey looked for the word he was trying to express. I guess extermination efforts. We really can't just let them roam all over trying to stab people. Oh, yeah, sure, James agreed. Davis, can you get me a copy of the mechanic's notes on this? Absolutely. Thank you. Not, Davis finished, giving James a disapproving look. We have information security for a reason. If you want to read it, get approval, schedule a time, come to the secure vault. Approval from whom? James demanded. I am in charge here. Despite protesting that fact constantly, Sarah spoke to Jake out of the corner of her mouth. Watcher Understone gave him a quizzical look. Assumed Sarah was in charge, she said, causing Sarah to sputter and make equally vehement denials. Davis ignored them and instead answered James. Normally, yeah, approval from yourself. Though, since you're one of the people who are on the list to grant approval, you need to get it from somebody else on the list. This seems needlessly complex, James told him. One man used the information in these papers to create self-replicating necromantic constructs, dungeon anchors, and a machine that steals bodies from children, Davis reminded James. I will get permission from Reed, James conceded. When you put it in context like that, yeah, sorry, I'll get permission from Reed. Now, there's 2 questions left to answer. Karen brought them back to the topic at hand. The first is, what do we do with the prisoners from the cult? Some of them I wouldn't exactly rank as evil people, James started with. A few of them thought they were really just helping the dungeon and not hurting anyone, though I concede they did try to kidnap a 12-year-old girl to do it, so they obviously aren't blameless. Sarah chopped her hand through the air at him. If you ordered people to kidnap a kid to save the world, do you not think anyone would do it? I mean, not if I didn't give them a reason, James argued. Also, I don't think I'd do that. That's probably why people listen to him, Harvey muttered to Nate, who gave an agreeable snort. And then, out loud, he added to the group, "This is basically where the rubber meets the road for our—" Stop laughing, Momo, that wasn't a pun. "For our interpretation of a legal system. Or rather, a justice system. I know James has talked about this before, but it is not theoretical anymore. The good old US of A does not consider attempted deicide to be a crime. We have no proof these people ever attempted kidnapping, murder, or fraud. Their fates are entirely up to us, and we need to decide on what that's going to be because it is going to come up more and more." A few people started talking at once, before they all paused, and tense quiet took over before Harvey took control of the proceedings. "Karen, you go first. We'll go around the table." "Lock them up. Throw away the key," Karen said simply. "Some mistakes you don't get to come back from." "We could also just shoot them," Nate offered. "I know a lot of you here won't like it, but we don't have long-term prison facilities. And we know at least one of them can do some kind of road magic. They're more than willing to use it to fuck people up. They're too dangerous to leave alive." James took a deep breath and was about to give a harsh answer when Watcher Under Stone jumped in first. "I could kill anyone in this room," she said quietly. "We," and she twitched her snout toward Knife and Fangs at the word, "only exist as we are because of a killing, a murder, but we were forgiven." "Yeah, thinking about it, I've got way more blood on my hands than any of them do as far as we know," Sarah sighed. "Self-defense, sure, but Watcher isn't wrong. How many people in this room aren't deadly weapons? Show of hands." Jake's hand shot up, a worried look in the man's eyes. Aside from Davis making a wobbling gesture of uncertainty, it was the only one. Yeah, being dangerous isn't worth killing someone over." "But they're still, I don't know what to call it." Momo shook her head, a look of disgust on her face. "Incompatible? Assholes? Maybe not all of them, but some of them. They wanted to have power over people. They were okay hurting people if it made them richer. That's fucked up, and we shouldn't tolerate that." And now James spoke. "I wouldn't ever want to be part of an organization that kills people it finds inconvenient," he said. "Hell, it's part of why I think we'd be better for humanity than most governments. No executions. But we do need to do more than just lock people up." "Why? The point is to punish them for what they've done," Karen asked. "No, the point is to make a better world. That is always going to be the point of anything we're doing here," James answered her. "Isolating someone from society fixes one problem. They can't keep hurting people, but it doesn't fix the problem that you either have to keep them isolated or eventually let them go, and then you have the same risk as before." He shook his head, waving one hand to his side in a gesture as he talked. "It's something we see with US prisons all the time. Recidivism is way too high because the main thing people learn in prison is contact information for other criminals and how to do violence better. And yeah, that's reductive. I know. I'm making a quick point here." He cut Harvey off before the other man could correct him, though Harvey hadn't really been going to correct James so much as just fill in statistical information. "My point is, we need a better solution. Rehabilitation, therapy, cultural immersion. Isolation from anyone they can hurt, sure, but also a path toward a better life. Maybe as members of the Order. Maybe just as citizens of a new world, but we cannot just lock 'em up or shoot 'em." "You want to treat them like victims," Davis commented. He didn't say it with malice, just like he was making a mental connection. "Aren't they?" Harvey asked. "Maybe not everyone we need to deal with will be, but a lot of these folks, they're cultists. Cults aren't exactly a full disclosure voluntary thing, right?" "Oh, hell no," Momo agreed with him. "Lying, implicit threats, exploitation, the whole point is exploitation of the membership. Make someone think that you're their friend and take advantage of that." Jake cleared his throat. "Cults are often uncomfortable territory, but Momo isn't wrong. A cult of personality, which it sounds like this was, is often a form of coercion against its members. It doesn't legally excuse their actions, but U.S. juries will often show leniency on the actions of members compared to leadership. He looked around. Also, I should probably quit now if you decide to carry out extrajudicial killings. It was just a suggestion. I'm fine with James' thing. Nate shrugged. There's still a logistics issue, Karen said with a sigh. We don't have the space. We cannot afford another building if we want to remain solvent through the end of the year. Sure we do, James said, blinking as he made a realization. We have the space. We have a whole city. And now we get to the second question, Karen quipped. Jake jumped in. Okay, I was asked to prepare for this. If you look at page 10 through 16 in the meeting notes, you can see a cost breakdown of expected capital gains and property taxes and legal fees, as well as the process of becoming an unincorporated township in the United States. Wait, isn't Taunton already a city? Momo asked. Well, it was, but since no one can remember it, documentation of it doesn't appear relevant. And despite having a very good degree, I don't actually know what the law is about what if everyone doesn't acknowledge the missing city, so you'll probably want to file at least some paperwork. James hummed thoughtfully. What if... Oh, here we go. Momo rubbed her palms together. I've been waiting for this. Fucking say it. James gave her an exasperated glower before looking back around the table. What if we just moved in? He said. With the dungeon there, it's a powerful resource, and the residual antimemetic effect gives us at least a little cover. If we move fast enough, by the time anyone notices, well, refuge in audacity, right? I cannot legally recommend that, Jake answered. But... No but. I'm not... Sorry, I should make this clear. I'm here to assist with the estate processing for the deceased, to help people who haven't been exposed to your world, to understand what has happened, and to help arbitrate property transfers. Your organization seems good at heart, and I can appreciate a lot of what you're doing. We're doing now, I suppose. But I am not, as you have put it, culturally immersed. I am here to make sure that your actions in regards to this city and its surviving citizens do not veer into the unethical. James nodded. Okay, that's totally fair. So, from an ethical perspective, is there anything wrong with us paying insurance or property value payouts to those who lost their homes or next of kin where available, and then just moving in? A number of small things, yes, though since your people have made it clear the area is functionally an active disaster site, it mitigates most of them. Mr. Redding flipped a page of his notes over and checked a couple of things. The thing to remember is, the law isn't always enforced equally. A number of things, such as zoning restrictions or use of firearms within city limits, would normally be enforced by people who are dead now, and no one is planning to take their place. He let his shoulders slump slightly. The loss of life, assuming this isn't some elaborate game you're all playing, is staggering. There have been wars that killed fewer people than this. He banished his frown as best he could and continued. Your concept of refuge in audacity isn't even legally irrational. If you are the sole caretaker of otherwise abandoned property and that property remains abandoned for 7 years, you can claim the title for it. I'll need to do more research to see about the responsibilities of a city government, but I assume it is something similar. That would be helpful, thank you, Karen told him. Is there a barrier now to occupying the empty land? Well, Tennessee trespassing laws could allow you to be arrested by local or state authorities regardless of if the property is owned or active. Redding shrugged. But again, they'd have to find you. I should mention the city doesn't actually connect to a highway anymore, James pointed out. The last line of defense blew up both main roads out of town. Jake flinched at the name, especially the way James pronounced it. The what? Oh, yeah, some kind of post-human soldier archetype. Bit of an asshole. James shook his head. I'll explain fully later. assuming that I actually understand what I'm talking about. Everyone else here has heard this already. Harvey pushed his chair back and stood up, and Nate followed suit. This mostly answers my question on what our future operations should be, he said. We'll start preparing for combat operations sometime starting next week. Clean the place up a little bit. Nate nodded. Also, I'm going to find someone to take my place as military commander. Not my thing. I've just been filling in. I can find some people to get to work on putting all the asphalt back where it belongs and not just all over the damn place, Momo added, stretching out before she wobbled to her feet as well. And I'll get the word out, Sarah said. Actually, we should get a stenographer for these meetings, she declared. Just auto-update a website somewhere with all our discussions and stuff. Davis nodded. I can get Rita started on something for that. I believe, Planner whispered, Ms. Moyle meant that we should ask someone to type. That seems lazy. We have engineers to solve problems like this, Davis replied. James grinned. That sentence, right there, that's how I know we've got our idea hooks in you. That is a man who is culturally immersed. He looked around at the rest of the table, gesturing at Davis as an example. All right, thanks everyone for catching me up. Sorry for dumping more work on all of us. Just let me know if anyone needs anything extra. There was, as there always was with meetings of this size, a period at the end where some people split off for individual conversations, or where the process of leaving overlapped for various people. As Jake folded up his own notes and followed Karen to her office to discuss funeral proceedings, a group of people headed to the elevator. Momo didn't waste time and just teleported out, not wanting to sit around the conference table for a moment longer than she needed to. At the end of a long talk, Sarah found James, the two of them the last ones left in the room, standing at the window and looking down over the web of roads and glittering glass below. Every time I look at this, I just think we could build something more efficient. James shook his head. Not like us, but us, humanity. We have, in other places, Sarah said. Cars are... They solve a problem, but they also cause other problems. We need to make teleporting the transit of the future. We're going to need a lot more magic coffee grounds, James smiled at her. I was gonna ask if you wanted to hit up Officium Mundi this coming week, Sarah grinned back. She was, James was pretty sure, the only one who always pronounced the whole dungeon names. Every time. Need a teammate? Always, he said, trading a light high five with her. Gonna need someone to carry me when I break the rest of my bones. Pish. Her smile wavered a little bit. You okay? Sarah asked, concerned for her friend. There was, James realized, a lot of emotion and language packed into those two small words. You okay? Was he okay? He had tried to go on vacation, and because he'd been screwing around, not acting fast enough, thousands of people had just died. And he'd had to kill one of them himself. He'd been kicked around, beat up, damaged, and injured. And now all those people who were so obviously smarter than him were asking him questions, looking to him for directions on important shit. And he was exhausted. So tired. He just wanted to, well, fade into the background of a dungeon delve, really. Explore, out there where there were no expectations or worries, see something new and cool without major stakes and ethical ramifications, maybe pick up a new superpower while he was doing it. But was he okay? He didn't know. But maybe that was okay on its own. I'll live, he told Sarah with a soft smile. I could have done more, you know? Maybe. But you also definitely could have done less, she reminded him. Also, what's the new dungeon like? Tell me. We haven't really talked except at security debriefings. Oh, you'd like it, I think. It's got mazes and magic gasoline and a whole bunch of weird stuff. Not all clumped up like here. It's a hell of a road trip. What are we calling this one? Elle said she didn't like the name Route Predation anymore since, you know, the whole thing. I've been mentally saying Route Horizon, James said, nodding understandingly at Elle's change of heart. It it tried, you know? I think that's the thing. The inside is hostile and bright and hot and harsh, but when the time came, the dungeon fucking tried. It for sure saved Jean and Ava, and probably thousands of other people too. It was fighting back, right up to the end there. Route Horizon. Sarah said the words, like she was intoning them into a mental shelf where she kept special names. I like it. Can't wait to visit her. Her? Oh, her, absolutely, Sarah nodded. Probably. I mean, I'll ask when I have the chance. James found himself laughing, a smile on his face so wide it shot pain through the damaged skin of his cheeks. Everyone should have someone this optimistic in their life, he told her, as he wiped away a small tear from the corner of his eye, grinning broadly still. I know, that's why I do a podcast, Sarah reminded him, matching his smile. She elbowed him lightly. So, any big plans for your progression up the power ranking? Giving a snort, James shook his head. Honestly, I think I'm cool not getting any more magic. Like, don't get me wrong, it's a huge dopamine hit every time something happens, but do I actually need another rank in AIM or another weird road spell? What? Yes, Sarah interjected, sharply, loudly, a different tone than she used for everything else. James gave her a look. Okay, but you get what I'm saying, right? There's a lot of people in the Order now who could make use of a copied memory package or the next school book. Am I really the... Yes, Sarah reiterated. And not just because you're my best friend, and I trust you with phenomenal cosmic power. She waggled her fingers in the air as she intoned the words. But also, because you keep ending up as our front line. You almost died. You almost died again. Her voice trailed off, and she turned her face away from James, the optimistic smile slipping rapidly. James didn't turn away, though. He just watched her as his confusion cleared up quickly. Ah, James said with a sigh. I guess that's true, isn't it? People just keep shooting at me or throwing monsters in my way. Damn it, I was really hoping I could outsource that. Really? Sarah glanced back at him. Really? Nah, not really, James admitted. I mean, okay, I don't like the repeated near-death experiences, but I do like protecting people when I can. I like exploring new places, even if they're dangerous. Maybe because they're dangerous. I haven't done that much introspection, but I mean, hell, when I found The Office for the first time, I remember... Fuck, this sounds so bad. I remember feeling alive when I was in it. Risking my life for tiny yellow orbs or a weird pen or something. It was so much more than everything in the real world, and I loved it. I'm probably super lucky I ended up bringing in Anesh, and then everyone else later, or I might have just gone in and not come out. And well, I don't think I've ever shaken that feeling. Even when I was feeling depressed and exhausted, my instinct was to go on another office delve, or take a vacation to go beat up a road necromancer. James thunked his head into the pane of the window, eyes unfocused on anything except for the sun glittering off the horizon. Sarah rubbed a hand across his back and gave him a nod like she knew exactly what he meant. And he realized, then, he'd never actually asked her why she had been going into Officium Mundi in the first place. So, Sarah drawled, got any plans for sucking up the magic through the danger straw? I'm going to go climb the stupid mountain, James said, neither of them unable to hold back grins. And then a rapid waterfall of laughter that bounced through the office floor and drew raised eyebrows from the people who were still working up here followed. Sarah gave him a soft high five. I am right there with you, she informed him. Want to go see if we can weasel into the hospital and ask the kids what they're going to name it? Pfft, absolutely not, because Karen would kill me, and I cannot prove that she doesn't have that power. James shook his head. Also, hey, I didn't realize this, but Momo said that Chavoy was there too. But Chavoy was one of the people on the rescue team for me? Is she cloning herself too, or did she just walk off Frostbite? Sarah blinked. That is a good question. Why don't you get lunch and see if we can ambush her and ask? All right, James decided. Yes. And also, yes, I'm okay. Yeah, I'm good, he said, and this time he meant it. Now, let's get back to work. And he meant that too. There was a lot to do.